Hi guys, Jake Jacobson. I'm part of the planning team for the Grace Evangelical Presbyterian Men's Hiking Trip of 2017. We're dedicated to putting together a series of videos and documents that will help inform you of the different training, conditioning aspects of getting prepared for the trip. But we also wanted to prepare you for the equipment that you need and educate you on the equipment. This video that's coming up is Mark Brown, a very experienced outdoorsman, does a lot of hiking and camping, and knows his equipment and has been on hiking trips in mountains and cold weather situations. And so he's going to go over a few of the equipment and clothing and some of the different aspects of hiking in the mountains that you'll need to be made aware of to make it an enjoyable trip.
First of all, we need to address this drone Taliban bombing. It looks exactly Yeah, exactly. You guys, most of you all know this. Some of you may not know everything that I'm going to talk about, and then some of you on the video might not know what I'm talking about. So, we're going to walk through gear a little bit and kind of what it's like to do well in the mountains and be happy you went. And we talk about type 1 fun and type 2 fun. Type 1 fun is like, I had a great time with my family, that was so sweet. Type 2 fun is like, I almost died, but isn't that fun now that I look back at that? Or like, that was miserable, but now that I'm done, it was really fun. That's it. So, there's a borderline in like, we want like 1.5. We want it to be low. Anyway, so when we talk about the mountains, Colorado's a lot different than here, and so there's 4 types of heat loss that Rick's going to help me demonstrate. So he's going to take that top shirt off and stand here. We're going to talk about different types of heat loss. This is when it gets a little viral on video right here. Okay. YouTube censorship. You're still in grade, bro. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so first, huh? Yeah. The first type of heat loss is radiation. So we usually think about radiation from the sun. But if you think about like a radiator heater in a room, it's emitting heat into a cooler space and losing heat, right? And so whenever you're in a room that's less than 98.6 degrees, you are radiating some heat. Or the flatulence we talked about earlier. Yeah. So because he's not covered here, he's losing some heat through his arms, and but the room is not that cold, and he's generating plenty, so he doesn't really realize it. So radiation, first one. The second one is convection. So if you touch something that's colder than you are, you're going to lose heat to that. So for us specifically, if you're laying on the ground and it's obviously colder than us, you're going to lose heat, which is why when we talk about a sleeping pad, you want not just something that'll give you a little cushion, but really insulation. So if you look at these inside, there's a layer of insulation inside there. And that's what keeps you from freezing. So we've had this happen quite a few times where people are like, I have this awesome air bed that I'm going to bring in. It's like 7 inches thick, but there's no insulation, which is basically like a refrigerator underneath your body when you're in your sleeping bag. So cushion is not as important as insulation when you're sleeping, because conduction is a really fast way to lose heat. So one of my wilderness first responder classes, I had to simulate having an episode of seizure, and I did it in Colorado, and it was like 10 degrees outside. And I happened to have the seizure on a piece of granite. And it took them 20 minutes to figure out they needed to get me off the granite. And I tell you, I was just shaking uncontrollably. And I'm supposed to be unresponsive. And they're like, do you think this is part of the drill? Do you think he's being tricky? And I'm like, no, I'm dying. Because it takes so little time if you're on the ground to get really, really cold. So we'll talk about that later. So the third type of heat loss is evaporation, which happens when you get wet.
This is type 2 fun.
This is type 1 right now. So when you get sweaty on the mountain and you get wet, that's a really good look. You're going to lose heat fast. So you don't want to sweat on the mountain, okay? You don't want to sweat because of evaporation. And one of the things we talk about with heat loss is with the dry air in Colorado, you will evaporate without even hardly sweating. So you won't even know you're losing water, and you'll be losing water. Okay? So major heat loss. And then the last type of heat loss is convection. And when you pair convection with evaporation, it gets really cold. Getting cold. Okay. Things will happen. We don't want to see all that. Okay. All right. That's it. So you want to stay dry, and when you get to the top of the mountain, if you've worked your butt off and you sweat it, you're done. Thank you. Let's give Rick a hand. If you sweat up the mountain, which is pretty common, you're going to get to the mountain, and all of a sudden, at the top, it's 40-mile-an-hour winds, and it's quite a bit colder up there. And you're like, I'm really cold. And that's really where people get in trouble. So, just read a story about a guy that died on Long's Peak a year or two ago. And that was the deal. He tried to summit 3 different times to Long's Peak. And he really wasn't ready. And he's like, I'm going for it. And they found him the next day, dead on the top from exposure because of that. So, it got wet, got windy. Anyway, so, I think 2 or 3 years ago, I did a whole thing about how people die on the mountain. And that was a little bit more.
That was awesome.
Yeah. Didn't really help us in the end. No one died. So anyway, so we're going to talk about layers in a second, but let's just talk about other gear first. So this is a 20-degree bag, which to me I think is a minimum. So if it's 32 degrees outside, which is, it'd probably be, at night it'll be anywhere from 25 to 40. 32 is pretty good. This is a 20, sorry. So 20 will keep you alive at 20, but you won't sleep well when it's 20 outside. So, if you want to sleep well at 20, you need to have a 0-degree bag. But for most of the time, the things we do, 20-degree bag is great. So the Hello Kitty flannel, whatever, not good. So sleeping bag, we already talked about the pad, which really varies from, just a neoprene pad or inflatable pad, or what Mike Everett heard, he got like a 6-inch double wide.
A two-man, yeah.
Two-man,
inflatable thing from REI.
Yeah. He can be over-prepared. Okay, so trekking poles, even one of these can be a really big help. Obviously 2 is better, but with your knees coming down and just safety going up, and it's just extra footing basically. And so a lot of times people are like, that's for old guys, but it really isn't. They're really, really helpful. They help your knees a lot. So you can get those at Walmart, you can get them anywhere, and even if you have a buddy you're going, you could buy a pair and split them and just take one apiece or something like that. So, especially if something happens, one of your buddies twists an ankle or something like that, then all of a sudden these are really, really important. So, trekking poles helpful. The shoes, the most important thing about your shoes or boots is that they're not new. That's the most painful choice, is the brand new boot. And you guys all know this, but the difference between a shoe like this and a boot is just that the heel's so much stiffer, and the rocks that we hike up are really pointy. And if you're in your tennis shoes, you can do that, but your feet are going to get really bruised up and sore. And this enables you to stand on a ridge or a rock and not have it go right through your insole of your foot. So support.
You're doing this afternoon, that's early enough.
What's that?
You're not doing this afternoon.
Yeah, if you hike about 10 miles a week, it'll be great. Start walking in them. So the pack for the day. So we're going to take in terms of water. So it's just some things about hydration and food. So high altitude mountain sickness is probably it's not high. Acute mountain sickness is probably what we'll face more than anything. And so some of the symptoms for that, in terms of moderate symptoms, are that you'll be maybe dizzy, nauseated is the most common. Sometimes you have a lack of appetite. Sometimes you can kind of stumble around. If it gets more severe, you can get congestion. Your heart rate gets really elevated. And gas is bad, but not fatal for you. So,
It can help propel you if you.
there you go. So you just need to pay attention. You get severe headaches and stuff like that. So you just need to pay attention to your body. And really the best thing about that is if you go at a good pace, you can really make it to the top. If you go too fast in the beginning, AMS can hit you halfway up, and it's really hard to get rid of it. So really the way you treat acute mountain sickness is you stop and rest, eat and drink, and it'll get better usually. And if it doesn't, you have to descend. So sometimes you can go up and you can go down 500 feet and then feel better, then you can go back up more gradually. So really the most common onset for AMS is just trying to go too fast in the beginning. And also it doesn't favor whether or not you're in great shape or not. Some people are just prone to get it, and you don't know why. And so it's not necessarily like, I'm in great shape, I don't need to worry about that. So one of the things is, it also, when it gets severe, you can get irritable and kind of, you lose your judgment. and you can really lose your balance. I've seen people just walking like they're absolutely drunk, and you can't even keep 2 feet in front of the other, and the heart rate stays up and it's irregular. So it can get really dangerous, so you just gotta pay attention to that. Tell your friends. One of the things we've run into this trip is that friends haven't told other friends that they're hurting until it's too late and it's a group problem. So you just need to say, kind of like everything with the church, you need to confess how you're doing and be honest about it, right? And this relates as well.
And have the elders come pray over you.
Right. Rick will be up on the mountain already. He'll come back down and pray for you.
If that doesn't help, you have Mark walk you down.
Yeah, that's better.
So you need to eat whether you need it or you think you need it or not, because you'll feel like, I'm not hungry. It's like, well, your body needs it. So you're better off snacking a little bit all the way up there. The same is true to some degree with water. Although the most recent science says that the thirst is a pretty good indicator of your need for water. So I've got a bladder here that's 2 liters, and this is 1 liter. So this is what I'll take up the mountain, 3 liters. And I'll save this and I'll drink this, because you don't know in your backpack when this is about gone. And it's irritating to be like, oh, I'm out and I already drank this and now I'm really out. So this is kind of my reserve. This is my initial. And the deal is that you want to sip it along the way. So I remember it was like 5 years ago, Scott Huffman drank 5 liters in like an hour and a half. I mean, so not only did he pee a ton, he had no water the second half. And so you can get in some medical problems if you drink too much. So it's called hyponatremia. So you can dilute your whole salt base as a person. It can really mess up your system. So you need a certain amount of salt in your body to function right. And so if you just chug, it's really not helpful. If you imagine a glass that has a few holes in the bottom, and then the higher you get, the more holes that are in it. This is a demonstration I've done before. If you pour water in there, the more you pour, the more it comes out, which is exactly what happens when I have tea, like after 8 o'clock at night. I have to pee at 1, right? So the more you, there you go, there's a viral moment. The more you drink, the more you're gonna pee. So you need to have it be gradual so your body can absorb it. One of the things I do too is I'll take like a half a liter and I'll drink it in the car on the way to the mountain, and then I don't have to carry it. So then I leave the half a liter full in the car, so I have something when I get back to the car, I'm thirsty, and I've already kind of hydrated myself before I start the hike. So, a few tips. So the day of the hike, I'll carry something like that, so you can carry your food and your water and stuff in it. But really, if you want to you can carry something like that as well, just enough to put your jacket and we'll go over the clothes here in a second, so you'll see kind of what I take on the mountain, but something like that can work as well. So it doesn't have to be fancy. So some thin gloves on the mountaintop are kind of important. It's really cold really fast.
I had my ski gloves last year.
There you go. Around the campground, something a little warm will be nice, because it gets pretty cold at night. So the little stuff you need for the mountain is maybe not quite enough. I always like these really comfy, warm pants for around the campfire. You know, it just gets cold at night, and we're going to hang out and talk around. And so bring something warm at night to be comfortable in. So on the mountain, I'm going to take this hat for the top, and I'm going to take this hat for the hike. So you guys know, in terms of the sun, it's a lot different up the mountain. So keeping the sun off of you, sunscreen, is pretty critical. You can get burnt really fast. This is the under layer that would work better than the white cotton t-shirt. So you want things that are going to wick, including underwear and wool socks. These are from Walmart, I think. So you can get a lot of this stuff really anywhere you want to. So the shirt needs to be cotton. The pants need to be, not cotton. There you go. Cotton kills good cats. That was just that. The pants, I wear these hiking pants. Now, I just make a qualification. You can totally wear shorts hiking, but if you do, make sure you bring your rain pants, because that's a game changer. If you're shorts and you get wet and you're up in the wind, you're in trouble. So we talk about layering, and we talk about this base layer and then a warmth layer and then an outer shell. So these are warmth layers, a little puffy or a little fleece, something like this is also non-cotton. It'll keep you warm in between. And then you've got a shell layer, and there's 2 types of shells. One that's really breathable, that's not super great in the rain, but it'll last for a little while. And these are great because you can hike and sweat, and you can wear this over a t-shirt even, and it'll breathe with you, so that's really nice. And then another shell, obviously, is more of a rainproof kind of shell. So up on the mountain, to really stop the wind, that's going to be really important, something like that. And then here's some rain pants. I just wanna give a thought about rain pants is, if you don't have any rain pants and you're not really excited about spending $200, then I would just get some super waterproof Walmart versions that would really be waterproof. You know, like they're not gonna breathe, you're not gonna wanna really hike in them, cause you're gonna sweat like crazy. But when you're sitting around at the top, or you're sitting around camp and it's raining, those little resistant sweat pants that you have are gonna be miserable. So you'd be better off using something that's really waterproof. So, anybody think of anything I've forgotten?
Can you show how to fit that, the bag? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's key.
This pack is not as big as some, but it has all the same principles. So there's just really 3 steps. So if you loosen up all these straps, and then loosen up all these straps, the first strap you want to tighten is the hip belt. So you put it on, you put the hip belt on, make sure it's on your hips, and you kind of make sure it's sitting on your hips. Tighten this up first, and the second strap you always top is these risers right here. So I mean these just so you want to, when you have a load in your back and it's pulling you, you want to pull these just until you feel it kind of hit your top of your shoulders. You don't cinch it too much because it's going to really just bow you like that. So you want it to be just enough. I skipped the third step, second step. So you're bringing that one in, chest strap. I don't have my bifocals on.
Let me help you.
So second step, third step, pull this in until you feel it start to come a little bit, but not too much. That's the mistake most people don't say. And then you're just miserable. And then the last step is these risers back here, these tensioners, if you pull those, and again, until it starts to come against your shoulders a little bit. Don't overdo that either, because it'll do the same thing. So that's kind of the order. 1, 2, 3, 4. On the
When you turn around and see where your backpack is on your back.
What's that?
Turn around.
Oh.
Where you pick it up.
Yeah, it's got no load, so it's not gonna help so much. But these straps are tensioners so that your stuff is against your back as much as possible. So, anyway, typically you want lightweight, heavyweight, lightweight, so that the heaviest part is right about here in your back if you're packing your weight. But we're not gonna carry that much, so it really doesn't matter a whole lot. But